What is a story? What is story? Cambridge Dictionary defines the word story as a description of a connected series of events, and that's pretty cut and dry, right? We understand that. Anytime you relay information that has a sequence or has an order, you would consider that a story. We know from literature, though, that the story usually has an arc, right? A beginning, middle, and an end, or a beginning, a conflict, and a resolution. So that's a story, but what is a good story? What makes those connected events good? When I think back about stories that I grew up with, I think of pretty much anything from Dr. Seuss, a bunch of different cartoons and series, things like that, a lot of epic adventures, fantasy adventures. I thought those stories were good. I still think those stories are good. But why? Why do I think those stories are so good? It's because they had an impact on my life, because they meant something to me. It's because they changed me into who I am. Those stories molded me, they shaped me. I probably would not have chosen to be an illustrator, a children's book illustrator, if I'd not have been constantly exposed to children's books growing up. If I had not had Dr. Seuss saying he 98.75% guarantees that I will be successful. I probably wouldn't be able to tell the stories that I can tell or in the way that I could tell them if I had not spent 40,000 hours trying to get through all the Lord of the Rings movies. They had an impact on me. They changed me. They made me who I am. So then think about the Bible. The Bible is a story. It's a series of connected events, and it follows the story arc. The entire story arc actually can be summed up in the first 6 chapters of the book of Genesis. And then we can see it being played out through all of time and history. Genesis chapter 1 and 2, you see the creation. God created everything. He created beauty. He created life. He created order, purpose. Chapters 3 through at least the very first part of 6, you read about the fall. So God created all this beautiful world, and he had a purpose behind it. He had a job to do, or he gave a job to do, and man decided, I'm just going to do something for myself. Right? They made the choice to make their own story. So now we get to the conflict, right? You have a beginning, you have the creation, then you get to the part of the story where there's a conflict. You have this idea of everything that God created, the order that God created, versus the path that man chose to do for themselves, create for themselves. So at the beginning, you have your conflict. The only way to overcome that conflict is to have a resolution. In chapter 6, you see the redemption theme. You have man who made a selfish choice, and that separated him from God. That broke the relationship, the bond that was there. That was a selfish choice. That was a choice made by man. But God offered another choice. Okay? He offered salvation. He offered a way out. He offered a way to be saved, to fix what was broken. So you have your resolution. What a story. What a story that is. You know, the stories I grew up with, the reason they were so impactful to me, the reason they meant something to me, they were good stories, is because I wanted them to be. I read those stories, and I wanted those stories to be played out in my life. I wanted to be those characters. I wanted to be the guy who made those characters. And so I read them over and over again. I watched them over and over again. I studied everything I could about those stories so that I could understand what made those stories great. I could understand everything that it took to make an impactful, good story. And that alone had an impact on me. That changed me. So I want to leave you, and I'll let someone else talk, with this idea, or this question. You know the story of the Bible. You know the Bible is a story. But is it a good story? Will you view it as a good story? Will you look at the Bible like something that you want to impact your life? Will you study it? Will you read it? Will you spend so much time understanding everything that this word has to say that you will let God's word change you into the person that God has originally created you to be?